Good afternoon, everybody. This is a relatively large crowd today, so I'll do my best. Welcome to Grid. So sorry for postponing it from last week. We ran into some logistical issues with traveling. As you know, airlines aren't as efficient as they used to be. So we made it though. We got back to Florida, so that's awesome. My name is Perez. I help run the Figueroa team and the businesses that fall under it. And this is my good partner and Figueroa team alumni, right? Israel Herrera, and he's gonna help me co-host. So Israel, tell them a little bit about yourself.
What's up, guys? I've probably been up here many times, but my name is Israel Herrera. We run a investment group that basically just do fix and flips. That's all we concentrate on, is fix and flips. This year alone, we bought today actually we bought our 33rd property. Fix and flip. So we're buying another 2 more this week. The goal is to get to 60, and we don't necessarily focus on wholesale. We do everything fix and flip. So this topic is really near and dear to my heart, because this obviously when you get the house, you got to find what, you got to find the money. And we're very good at sourcing money and partnering and things like that with deals. So we're going to get right to that and uncover that onion. And I'm going to tell you exactly what not to do, what to do to get to that level, basically.
Thank you, bro. Let's go to 2 slides. Look, we did that. Boom. I'll go back real quick. Gotta say a disclaimer real quick. We're not accountants or financial experts. We're just here giving you advice from the experiences that we've had working as investors in the real estate field. That's recorded and official. Okay, so typically understanding grid, it's a pretty fundamental curriculum. It starts with how to find a deal, how to rate a deal if it's going to be equitable and profitable for yourself. And we're coming down to the place. Okay, now you did find the deal, you did the analysis on it, you realized renovation and actually taking down the deal, as a common term, investment place, is worthwhile to you. So how do you fund it? How do you buy it? And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. There's a couple of primary ways to do it. Very simple: cash, obviously, which the majority of us aren't that liquid to go out there and start buying properties. We can use other resources like your home equity, stock, other investments, your IRA. You can borrow against that as well, and all these can be used for you to source funds for a deal. Also, your sphere of influence, right? Your family, friends, and your partners. I know Israel here is partnered with a few of my actual real estate team members that really want to deal and help them get to the finish line and actually get involved in the first investment. I think Henry, did you go there? Really? Yeah, great mentor, the best ever. And then typically loans as well, right? They're often the best because you're not liquidating your cash. If you do have a large lump sum and you're able to get financing, you can actually get yourself into more deals at one time rather than liquidating yourself right at the spot. So loans are primarily the way to go. Types of loans. This guy will know better than me, but I can tell you traditional banks, but you need a typically good track record of success and a portfolio showing that you have done this multiple times. And you need, good credit. They're looking at you through and through, just like buying a normal house, and about 25% of the project cost in cash. So it's can be expensive if you're not super liquid. There's other options we're going to talk about, and there is appraisals, there is underwriting. It does take 3 or 4 weeks to close on average. So it's really not the best resource for someone who's trying to get in and out like deals like Israel here. But it's definitely an option for you to use if you're going to hold it for a long term. It's definitely an option for you to use. Next, private or hard money loans. So these are I'll let you speak on this in 1 second, but these are companies that are really designed, or individuals that are designed to lend their money for investment deals, but it's at a higher rate, right? It's going to be higher than your traditional interest rate on a home loan, but it's because it's not meant to be held for a long period of time. It's meant to you to go in and out. It's more flexible as well, and they don't necessarily look at your credit. You go to the next slide, and they look at who you are as a person, but they actually do the analysis on the deal as well. Because they're not betting on you, they're betting on you getting in and out of the deal. So do you have any good things to say about?
Yeah, so I just speak a lot about realtors unlocking their mind, right? And not just opening doors and listing properties, right? Opening doors for buyers and listing properties. I speak about them opening up their minds and becoming their own buyers, right? And I'll tell you a quick story. You have to be able to source that money. And don't be afraid to ask the questions, right? One of my, I established a company out there in New Jersey. It's called Air Homes LLC. And my two partners were my clients. They were my clients. They bought a house from me as fix and flip. I walked them through the process, and then we put our monies together and created this company. But I would have never known that if I didn't ask that question, right? And at the end of the day, if you're investing people, I read something on the internet the other day where $100 or $1 is now worth 97 cents, basically because of inflation. But guess where it's not worth 97 cents? In real estate. It's never going to lose, right? Number one, because the biggest thing you can do to outsource a person that you know has money, or that you may think maybe wanted to look at something to be able to reinvest their money, you have to be able to speak to them intelligently. And when you speak to them intelligently, you tell them, hey, listen, this is the safest and most secure investment you're probably going to make. Why? Because your money is backed by the real estate. If you loan me this money, or get into a partnership or whatever the case may be, you can take first position mortgage on the note, and you will never lose this money. Why? Because your money is tied up to the real estate. It's not tied up with me. I may be a personal guarantor with that property, and my credit or whatever the case may be. Like Eric was saying, doesn't necessarily have to do with the individual, it's the property. If the property is evaluated correctly and it has enough equity in it, you as the investor, the money guy, should never typically lose. Because if I stop paying you or stop paying you, or you fall on the loan, all you have to do is foreclose on me, get your money back. Not only do you have your money back, but now you made more money as the actual investor because you can sell that property at a later date for a higher profit.
Thanks. So we're gonna talk a little bit of hard money loans. They're commercial use typically, non-owner occupied owner real estate. They're held for investments sometimes. First trustee to note, terms similar to a bank loan. Maximum loan to value about 65 to 70%. And there's construction holdbacks and draws to fund renovations, meaning you don't get released the money instantaneously that you're borrowing a hard money. As the project goes on, you get released portions of it. Some hard money actually charge you every time you want to go through withdrawal, so it becomes a little bit of a headache. And also sometimes it'll give you the funds immediately. This year we had to do a deal. We actually just put it on my American Express because we're trying to get it done and we're waiting for the withdrawal. Ended up not borrowing that money, ended up actually getting the deal done a lot faster, and got it on the market pretty quick. So
Let me use American Express next week.
it's getting time these days, right?
Another thing too, when you have with hard money is that they don't tell you is that you have to have, typically you have to have your first draw to go in and start that rehab, right? You have to have that money up front to go ahead and start that rehab. Unless you have a lender that will credit that back to you at the closing table, you still have to have that money to start your rehab. So make sure you have a little bit of funds left after you come with your cash and close to start your rehab.
Thank you. Is there a certain amount of draws you can and cannot have, or it depends on the hard money loan?
It all depends on your rehab budget size. But you basically, a lot of hard money lenders will let you pick your own draw schedule. I typically like to do mine within 2 weeks. I'm willing to have 10 days to 2 weeks because I'm trying to be in and out of that project.
Perfect, thank you. Some more facts on it, like he just mentioned, credit or borrow not as important as the viability of the deal. Points and some interest rates are normally prepaid at closing on the acquisition, not the resale of the house. 9 to 13% interest rate, we did already mention, it's typically a lot higher than a normal house mortgage, but that's because it's not built for you to be in it for 30 years, and whether being in it for 30 years is a very expensive house. And it's 2 to 5 points in common, depending on the value experience of the person. And really, because hard money is more privatized, it's the relationship you have that the institution as well. So and the cost of the loan is directly related to the risk taken by the lender. So that's why the deal is actually more important than anything else, because their risk is leveraged against the actual home you're trying to flip, not so much that it is real, right? But
everybody understand the point situation? What that means? What you're paying for points is basically you're paying 2% on the actual loan.
What you're borrowing, correct? What you're borrowing. Yeah. With the property structure loan, the return in cash is much higher because you don't need as much, and you won't need to find a partner or JV on it, so it's more money for you. But if you do need to JV with somebody, it's a lot easier to find incremental amounts like 50,000, 10,000, 20,000 than trying to pull a fund for a total of $500,000. It's a little bit. Syndicating is more for bigger projects where millions of dollars to do a mass syndication on a $500,000 house. I think there's not much meat on that bone. If you want to do that, go ahead. But just look into a hard money lender if you're going to go that route. And that's it, guys. Do you have any questions? I'm gonna bring these animals up here, and start asking about, loans and money, and, if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, but thank you so much. Anything for Israel? No? All right, I'm gonna bring up the panel. Oh, yeah.
Where do you find hard money lenders?
Good question. Good question. Matter of fact, we got, I think, some people that know about hard money, so let's bring up the panel real quick. So round of applause. I'm gonna, you have actually like permission? Sit down, take a seat, take a seat. Got it.
Oh, sorry.
You give that to anyone?
You want
Then
to
give
give
it-
them
no,
that with the mic on it or the little question?
Oh, I have to hold the question on. And then. So the answer, the ask, or to get an answer to the question, where do you find the Hiram Hector, by the way? So, you can introduce yourselves. Go ahead. I'm gonna speak for people.
How you doing, guys? My name is Hiram Camacho. I've been in the industry for about 21 years. I do everything from conventional FHA to hard money investing, depending on where, what you specifically need to get into your project.
I am Hector Cerveño. I am real estate agent. Obviously, I'm with the education. And I work primarily with residential sales, but I also am very familiar in the hard money industry when it comes to fixing and flipping and turning more the wholesale to a traditional sale, which is something that you learn throughout the process of being in hard money. So
How'd you get there? Is it because you represent a lot of investors, or how'd you get to that?
I got really lucky. Yeah, I turned my residential clients into hard money investors. You have to. I feel like you have to educate your buyers, even your sellers. What are you going to do with that money afterwards? And I've learned to be able to teach my clients or friends, referrals, spheres, whatever that comes from a residential side, and having that buffer for them with my background. My background is timeshare. I have a hospitality background. And being able to negotiate with wholesalers and be able to negotiate with different scenarios. Because I think in the hard money industry, and I think you would agree, it doesn't matter whether what type of loan you're actually going to, like Eric was saying earlier, you kind of have to set it up according to plan. You might have to put it on American Express card one deal, but the next deal, you might have a deal where you have to do a joint venture and you have to make that phone call and say, hey, Israel, I got this situation. This deal makes sense. And I think what happens a lot of times is that what we want to try to educate not only the consumer, your partners. What does that look like? How do you solidify, cool, 30 plus,
33.
33, 33, right? 60, how do you get to that goal?
So let me ask a question, Hiram. So like a lot of people in the grid network, just residential real estate agency transaction, like they live on the east side of the transaction, right, by themselves. How does a real estate agent find a hard money lender, being that all the lenders they deal with just want them to, do the traditional type of loan for their clients, because these LOs aren't necessarily experienced in that place either. So if you're a residential real estate today, you've been part of grid for the last, I don't know how many months, and you found a deal that you can potentially go into, what would be step one for them?
I think number one, I think is going to be more the experience. I mean, there's a lot of loan officers out there that are in the industry, but they don't have the outlets or understand how to get the outlets to get into hard money. I never really ventured into hard money until about 5 years ago. So it wasn't in my mind, but when you're looking, at the end of the day, it's all about making capital and increasing your income potential. So if you're able to tap into that market and understand it, and share it with your referral partner, I think that's going to be very important for that piece.
So do I call my LO that just did my last deal with me, like, hey man, I need a hard money loan, what do I do?
You're going to call me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll call you, but I'm gonna let Mark go in a second. Let's say I don't know you. Say I'm working with a Ring mortgage company down the street that it's just the LO that's been as long in the game as I have for 2 years. And I found a deal because I've been part of grid for 6 months, and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to take down a deal. So I call that, what do I do? What do I even say?
Well, it's gonna be based on the need. I mean, it's, our money lenders don't really promote, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, you have to promote out here, and if you don't have the right market to promote yourself, how are people gonna know what you have the capacity to do? So I think it's very important of not just the, like I said, the experience, but marketing, showing the capacity of what you can do as a joint money lender.
I think lenders help you guide the direction. You just ask them, and, because they know each other in the industry. When I first started, I was like, okay, where do I start? And I'm like, what do we do? Who do I call? I know I have resources. Okay. So I started calling my lender. Hey, you have money? No, who does? And then you kind of just trickle into it.
I have a good person to ask Israel. How did you find your first hard money loan?
On the internet. Yeah, on the internet. I Googled it, basically. So if you Google right now, I did a deal. My first deal was with a company called DoHardMoney.com. You Google them, DoHardMoney.com. They actually promote that they do 100% financing. It's not going to be cheap. It's going to be expensive. But at the end of the day, I have the mentality that, okay, I can pay this hard money lender 20% of the money, right? Or I can go find a partner 50, 60% and pay them 50, 60% of the whole profit. At the end of the day, you gotta, it's better to have something of, than not have nothing. So you Google it basically, and it's all about relationships too. You gotta be big on relationships. You gotta put yourself out there. You can't be a secret an investor. You gotta put yourself out there. That's why I document everything I do, every deal that I do. And you got guys coming at me left and right with money. And when they come left and right with money, you take it. It's bad. It's worse when you gotta actually ask for the money. But the deal will definitely bring the money. If you get a good deal, you will see how quickly the money attracts to that deal.
And Hector would introduce your buddy.
Absolutely. My good friend and partner, someone that I met about 2 years ago. I'm honored to be able to at least introduce my partner in a sense, Mark. Just want to kind of do 10 seconds and kind of really go into the relationship part of what Israel is saying. This is a relationship that I built with this gentleman 2 years ago. We by accident, he had another partner at the time that was trying to do a deal with us, and it just wasn't working. And he stepped in and said, hey, give me an opportunity to fix it. And then the rest is history. I mean, 30, 40, 50, I don't know that you have the numbers, Mark, but 50 deals later, it's like one after another. We're working with at least 3 to 5 transactions a month without just waking up. And I introduced Mark, so I'll put an intro.
So, Mark,
Yeah, he unmuted himself.
Mark, go ahead, say something.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, like Hector was saying, I'm Mark. I'm a hard money broker and my company is a lender. My company's name is Prosper Firm, and we are actually located in Pittsburgh. And I've met Hector, like he said, and Florida is our best market other than, the city that I'm currently located in. We do deals all throughout Florida. And like Hector was just saying, it's all about the relationships that you can build. Someone brand new, that needs to find their first hard money lender, or, help on their first deal. It's tough to go on to Google and find out who's the best, who can I trust? Because you can't just get that anywhere. So many people claim to be, the guy these days. So to have like a go-to in your corner like that, that's a huge value add to somebody just starting out.
Awesome, thank you. And how long have you been in the business?
So I've been in lending for 5 years now. And 2 years ago, I started and became the senior loan officer here at Prosper Firm for primarily just private money and hard money lending.
And what do you look for in a good partner?
Honestly, the best people I partner with, they're responsive with me. Not so much of how liquid are they, well, how responsive they are to me is the best thing I can get, because if I can have the best deal in the world, but if they don't answer me for 3 days, then I can't help them. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Well, I can second that.
Eric, can I add that also on the flip side, he picks up the phone every time I call him. It's without a doubt, and I think that relationship is the more, it has to be both.
Yeah, of course. Communication.
That's the foundation that you have to have.
We've always talked about that in the past. That's sales fundamentals, right? Like, it's not even hard money, real estate, your girlfriend, like whatever.
I think, and a lot of sales 101, you have to always remember, implement that in your business. Implement that and don't sleep on it, because you take off when you don't do that, sales 101, you miss so many opportunities. We always talk about the opportunities that we walk away, right? Israel, we walk away from deals that we know this doesn't feel right here. I've walked away with deals with Mark and I have that relationship all the time where I call him and say, Mark, you know what? I don't like this, man. And he's like, the numbers are there. I'm like, there's something there's about 20-30% that I just don't see it, man. And we walked away from deals over and over. I told him on the way here, I said, Mark, we got on a deal the other day that we closed. And when I tell you I shouldn't have closed the deal, And Mark looked at me and he said, man, you're closing this deal. What's your exit strategy? I think very important, something that, I would love to make sure that gets presented is, and back me up here, you have to have an exit strategy.
100%.
If you don't have an exit strategy, you're sitting duck, because you're working with other people's money sometimes, especially like your money. Like, I need to know, I just purchased a house that I was going to move in as a primary. And then I realized, I was like, man, this is another flip. And I had to call my girl. I said, listen, I'm sorry, honey, we're not moving out there, but we're flipping this bad boy. I went to Mark. I said, that's my new exit strategy. Before it was a primary, switch my loan, no prepay, and get me out of here. Example, i.e. deals over and over. And Mark, I think you can maybe, enlighten that a little bit of some of the deals on how that relationship helps with the deals. I don't know if I'm kind of setting it up for that.
Actually, I wanted to ask Israel, how many hard money lenders do you use today?
I probably got about 7 of them. I just established a really good relationship with Lima One Capital. We just closed 2 deals with them, so just give you a free game on it. But typically, when you get a deal, real estate deal, they want to know how quickly can you close, right? That's one of the questions that I have for Mark is typically when you get it under contract, how quickly can you get that deal closed? Number one, what are your contingencies, right? Because you're coming in, you're trying to negotiate that deal. You're like, hey, this is cash, not necessarily liquid, but it's cash. But do you have to do an appraisal, right? Do you have an appraisal contingency? Do you have to do an inspection and things like that? So those are very important things when you actually vet any hard money lender. How quickly can you close? Do you have any contingencies as far as appraisal is concerned? And do you have any other inspections that I may need to know about, right?
I also had a question from Paige, said I've heard that hard money lenders are expensive. Hector was mentioning that. Can you give an example with numbers?
Well, yeah, I mean, in any transaction, there, it's always going to be more expensive, not only on the interest rate, but on points, because it's almost like talking to a mortgage broker. They'll charge all the fees up front, so we can pay anywhere between 2 to 5% on the transaction, because the investor is going to make their percentage, and whoever's in the middle is always going to make their money up front as well. Obviously, with experience and the relationship you're building with the hard money lender, that's always going to be negotiable to be able to further the relationship. The more transactions you have, the more volume you're going to focus on.
I think to add that, if we take one deal at a time, and when it comes to every deal we look at it, and there's been deals where, I'm sure we've done deals before on residential, where I call you and say, hey, where do we adjust? Where do you pivot in the deal? Look at it from saving money up front. You want to try to save them as much money as possible, or you try to save yourself as much money as possible, but you also have to see where that difference is. Might be some times where, I can negotiate with that, done it over and over. Mark will tell you, like, hey, you negotiate a real estate commission agreement with the investment group that's actually JV in the deal. I'm like, yeah, they're paying me on the front end, and guess what? My buyer's paying me, 3% on the commission agreement on the back end on the front side of a deal. Me knowing I'm going to live for 4 to 5, 6% on the back side. So just alone, I have room to be able to help if it comes down to the saying, hey, the lender points are a little bit too aggressive, whatever the case may be. So kind of look to where you can adjust the deal. It's not just black and white. And Israel, how many times have you adjust throughout a deal? It's just all.
Who starts that conversation, the lender or the buyer? As you as I can.
In most cases, the lender starts that conversation because once we get the collateral and based on what the situation is, we put the terms up front.
Yeah, Mark does bring it, and Mark chimed in, and Mark brings a lot of the investor issues because he's the one having the conversations about the money, a lot of them. Yeah, and his underwriters, are so flexible, and I kind of don't want to get off, we turn it over to Mark, but, Israel said something very important, contingencies, this is why these relationships are important because, Mark's contingencies are, I've worked with other hard monies and I'm like, okay, you gotta do an appraisal, they're gonna come over here, now they want, they have all these, there's times depending on the investor that, Mark, we don't even do an appraisal, right? We just do, we do a BPO. So, that's a good thing. I go in a lot of time with no inspection, no appraisal period, so my store window is the opportunity to get in there and get my GC in there to see, because I know if I go to Mark and he'll answer this question, Mark, what's the only one issue that we have when it comes to our time? I think you say this all the time.
Title companies and insurance agents.
That's it. Title company insurance. Your timelines, we've hit 7-day timelines, we've hit 3-day timelines. We've got a lender right now, a partner, Mark, if not mistaken, that can close in what, 24, 48 hours? With no questions asked, you're gonna take the hit, of course you are. But I mean, you get these deals in 3 days, and he told me the other day, he's like, oh, I'll close in 3 days. I'm like, no, I don't need 3 days, close in 21 days, it's fine, So, Mark, if you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't want to talk over anybody. The one thing that I do want to hit on there was before we go into the deal, I like to know like how much time do we have? Like, can we get 2 weeks? If we can't get 2 weeks, how much time like can we actually get without having to really blow the deal up? And are you okay with showing a bank statement? Do we have the time to do an appraisal? Do we not? Like that depends on who we place the deal with and if my company is going to lend on it or if I'm going to use one of my lending partners or not. So that plays a huge factor. And also where sometimes credit's looked at, sometimes it's not. And going in on the front end, if you're like, hey, I have a low credit score because I just came out of a flip and I used my card because the other guy was taking forever on the draw, my score's not the best right now. People like to hide that from me and not tell me that on the front end. It's like, tell me everything on the front end. That way we have the best strategy going into your deal so we can close it as fast and as efficient as possible.
Excellent, thank you, Mark. Does anybody have any more questions? Anything?
I'd like to add something real quick, if you don't mind, is, guys, don't be afraid to buy. The number one question I get now, and I actually just had this conversation with Eric, just right here. What do you feel about the market? How do you feel about the market? Everybody's afraid about the market and things like that. If you stop buying, if you're afraid now, you will die. And you ain't resurrected like Jesus, I promise you. You're dying, you're gone away forever. So keep buying, do not be afraid, because all you have to do is adjust on the front end. Adjust when you buy. Hard money lenders are not going to stop lending, I promise you that. You bring them properties, they will lend on it. If the deal makes sense, they will lend on it.
Can I harp also one thing too? Israel just said something, if it makes sense, right? We always hear that one saying, if it makes dollars, it makes sense, right? You hear it all through your life, right? The idea is what makes sense on paper, obviously, and then visualizing the plan, timelines, huge timelines. Like Israel said, and Mark said, we've been in deals where they say, hey, don't be afraid to ask that question. When is your front end contract? What's the date on it? Because the kind of shadow games I say, that they're out there trying to be as discreet as not, offend anybody, but there is a lot of shadow games going on, and it's okay to say. That's why everybody hears hard money and they hear off market and everybody starts freaking out or like, oh my God, I couldn't get in that business. No, it's just a simple ask the question. Ask the right questions. You don't know what they are, ask the Israel of this world. How many times, but I haven't been blessed enough to get on a deal with Israel yet, but it's coming. It's coming. We're gonna get on 160. I gotta get Mark, we gotta get on a deal with Israel. Next week we have to get a contract with Israel. Because it has but how many times have I asked the question, Israel? How many times have I come to you? We talking, and Eric and I have had some very, very, very intentional conversations about what does the market look like? And for us, we're like, it's great. We're not gonna stop buying, and if you're distressed, we'll help you. If you ask the right question. I know that you'll help the distressed, I know I will, because you actually make more money when you're helping the distressed than you are the.
And just to back up that, man, like I said, when I first started, it's just a relationship based. It's not just about what you know, it's who you know. I give you an example. There was a real estate event, I think last week, 2 weeks ago, that was being held out here in downtown Orlando. I was coming back from a property that I was doing back in Northport. I was have property all the way in Northport, right? And I called my homeboy that introduced me to the event. And I said, man, I'm over here on I-4. I'm stuck in traffic. I don't even know. Keep it a stack with you, like my son said. I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. I want to go and speak in Hard Rock and play poker, to be honest with you. I'm like, man, when you go to Hard Rock, we should poker, let this traffic die down. But I powered through, got through the traffic, and I got to this event. Well, when I got to this event, I made a connection there, and I just picked up a tremendous deal in Sanford, right off of Martin Luther Roads. Gated community, tremendous deal. We're talking about 2.5 acres in a gated community. This guy's got his own freaking private land in the back. I would never pick up that deal if I didn't go to that event, if I didn't make that connection. You know what I mean? And the guy called me right away. I made that connection. He called me right away. I was in the meeting with my team. I gave him my number. I said, bro, I'm buying. Call me. He called me right away and he got that deal.
By the way, I do casino night funding.
Oh, let's do it. I'm ready.
Oh, my AMAX, right, yeah. I just paid it all, didn't save it up, but anything. Any other questions, guys?
I guess I'll say something. I'm trying really hard to stay quiet because I like what I'm hearing. It sounds like to me that what you guys are all promoting, you're all saying the same message in different ways. Is that if you're interviewing your potential partners being your lenders, your real estate buyers, your sellers, you really want to have a good team behind you, and you want to have several of that same caliber, that same industry, because not every deal is alike, right? So you want to make sure that you have several lenders that you've interviewed, because something may fall on your lap. And maybe Mark is not the right lender for that, may not be the right broker, but if you have a network of people and you interview them, then it will get the deal.
Well, Grand Lesson 3 was Dream Team, our third month of
Yeah.
Dream Team, and it's not even talking about your like abundance of lenders, talking about contractors, subcontractors, Jesus, like the whole concept is you do want to network as much as possible for scenarios. You're 100% right. 100%.
Eric, one of the things in the conversation, I was actually with Veronica talking early on the way in here, and we were just talking about that though. And I think Mark hit it, when he said it, title and insurance are usually our biggest hiccups, because not every title or not every insurance understands what a dry funding is, or, understands what it takes from contract A, contract B, so I think you really hit something that we were talking about as far as teaming up with the right, vendors and the right vendors and, the right people, period, I personally, if it wasn't for my VP team, my awesome real brothers and their VP team, man, they've saved me a lot of money. But it also too, having the right title company in place, they've also saved a lot of headaches because they understand what it is. So I just think that, like you said, pick the right.
You guys get into the same process, just to streamline, it just gets done faster.
The more you do, the more you grow, the more you know, so it all comes together. So,
And you get a free microwave.
and a pretty much, no, the one that's food.
On America's.
We're all talking about when I buy appliances on American Express because the drone's taking too long. You know what I'm talking about. I had to tell them about that. We're talking about drone. If there's no more questions, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you for coming and eat some food. There's some beverages, adult beverages as well. And thank you for coming. That's it.
Thank you very much, guys.